Before we get into it, I want to say something real quick. I know some of you have been listening every day I publish these briefings, and I want you to know I genuinely appreciate that. I do not take that lightly. My sincere hope is that you are getting something useful from this, even if sometimes the lesson is just what not to do. If these briefings help you see a problem differently, catch a pattern earlier, or make a cleaner decision under pressure, then they are doing what I want them to do. And if there is a specific leadership, operations, service, retail, restaurant, hospitality, public sector, logistics, or team problem you want me to cover, reach out. I would like to build more mailbag episodes around real issues people are seeing. You can also send suggestions on how I can make these briefings clearer, sharper, or more useful. I am building this to serve people who actually have to lead, decide, and execute under pressure. Now let's begin. What I'm going to cover with you today is this. Before you blame the associate, inspect the return counter. I want to take this one into retail, restaurants, and hospitality because this is where leaders can get fooled by the part of the problem that is easiest to see. A customer gets upset, a guest complains, the line backs up, the associate gets tense, the server sounds defensive, the front desk agent looks overwhelmed, the host stand starts losing control, a manager gets called, a survey comes in saying the employee was rude, unhelpful, confused, or inconsistent. And once that complaint hits the leader's desk, the first reaction can feel obvious. Coach the person. That may be necessary. Tone matters. Service matters. Hospitality matters. A team member cannot hide behind a bad process and treat people poorly. Let me be clear on that. This is not a defense of weak service, but it is also not leadership to blame the person standing at the friction point before you inspect the process that put them there. When the same conflict keeps showing up in the same place, the problem may not be the person. The problem may be the counter, the handoff, the system prompt, the policy language, the authority gap, or the moment where the customer expectation and the operating reality stop matching. That is where close-up analysis matters. Close-up analysis is the discipline of getting close enough to see the exact part of the process where friction is being created, hidden, passed forward, or mishandled. It is not a broad read. It is not a general reminder. It is not, we need better customer service. That phrase is too broad to fix anything by itself. Close-up analysis asks the sharper question, where exactly is the failure forming? At the return counter, that may be the receipt lookup, it may be the online order verification, it may be the item condition check, it may be the manager approval, it may be the refund method, it may be the policy explanation, it may be the handoff from associate to manager. If you do not inspect the exact moment, you may coach attitude while leaving the failure point untouched. Picture a busy specialty retail store in a suburban shopping center. We will call the store manager Maya. Her store sells apparel, accessories, seasonal items, and online exclusive products that customers often bring back in store. Traffic is steady during the week and heavy on weekends. The front end area is small. The service counter is tight. The back room is limited. Online orders come in from different channels. Some customers bought directly from the store website. Some bought through a marketplace partner. Some use gift receipts. Some have the order confirmation on their phone, but cannot find the order number. Some bring merchandise without tags. Some are honest. Some are confused. Some are pushing the policy. Some are abusing it. And the associate at the counter is the one who has to absorb all of that friction face to face. The company recently tightened parts of the return process. Associates now have to check purchase channel, return window, product condition, receipt status, item tags, online order number, and return reason code before completing certain returns. High-dollar returns need manager approval. Used or worn merchandise needs judgment. Gift returns require extra steps. Third-party marketplace items confuse customers because the customer sees the brand name But the store system does not always treat the transaction the same way. The policy is not unreasonable. Shrink matters, fraud matters, margin matters, inventory accuracy matters, return abuse is real. But the return counter is now where all of that pressure lands. Over the last month, complaints have increased. Customers say the process is inconsistent. Associates say the POS prompts are confusing. Managers say they are being called too often. The district leader wants the store to reduce front-end friction. The first fix looks obvious. Coach the associates. Tell them to stay calm. Remind them to explain the policy. Reduce manager calls. Improve the tone at the counter. Move the line faster. That logic makes sense at the surface. But Maya notices something important. The complaints are not spread evenly across the store. They are clustering around one point, the return counter. That tells her this is not only a service attitude issue, this is a failure point issue. That is the leadership test. Not whether the associate matters or the process matters. That framing is too thin. The real question is sharper. Is the associate mishandling the interaction, or is the associate being placed inside a process that makes poor handling more likely? At the surface level, the visible problem is customer conflict. Customers are frustrated, associates are tense, managers are getting called, the line is slowing down. Surveys mention the return experience. If Maya reacts only to what is visible, she may conclude the associates need better customer service coaching. Maybe they do. But the visible conflict is not enough. She has to ask what is happening inside the interaction. Is the associate struggling with tone, or are they being asked to enforce unclear policy language? Is the customer upset because the answer is no, or because the answer changes depending on who is working? Is the line slow because associates lack urgency, or because the register path has too many verification steps and no clean backup support? Is the manager being called because the associate is weak, or because authority is unclear? That combination changes the read. A short read sees a bad return interaction. A better read sees the sequence inside the interaction, the greeting, the receipt or order lookup, the product condition check, the policy explanation, the POS warning, the manager call, the override decision, the refund completion, the customer exit, the line recovery. Every one of those steps can create friction. And if the leader does not inspect the specific step, the fix will be too broad. So Maya watches the counter during a busy return window. She does not stand in the office and guess. She gets close enough to see the process detail from the associate side and the customer side. One customer comes in with an online order. The customer has an email confirmation, but the order number is buried. The associate asks for the receipt. The customer says the website said the email was enough. The associate scans the item. The POS asks for purchase channel confirmation. The customer grows impatient. Another customer joins the line. The associate calls the manager. The manager arrives and asks the same questions again. The customer gets more frustrated because now they feel like they are starting over. The manager overrides the return to keep the line moving. The customer leaves with the refund. The associate learns the policy may not hold. The next customer sees that the manager can override. The next associate hears about it. The return counter gets weaker. That is not one bad moment. That is a stack. The customer information did not match what the associate needed. The associate did not have a clean lookup path. The POS prompt drove the conversation instead of supporting it. The manager handoff repeated the same questions. The line created time pressure. The override solved the immediate conflict but weakened the standard. Then leadership looks at the survey later and says, the team needs better customer service. That may be true, but it is incomplete. The counter was creating the conflict before anyone made a bad decision. This is the part retail leaders have to respect. The return counter is where the system becomes personal. A return policy is written somewhere else. The customer reads it somewhere else. The online system processes it somewhere else. Fraud rules are designed somewhere else. Store leaders interpret the rules somewhere else. But the associate has to enforce it face to face, with a line forming, a customer getting emotional, and a manager who may or may not be close enough to help. That counter is where policy becomes a conversation. It is where technology becomes a delay. It is where item condition becomes judgment. It is where shrink control becomes customer friction. It is where unclear authority becomes manager escalation. It is where the brand promise meets operating reality. I have seen versions of this mistake before, and I respect it more now than I did earlier in leadership. Under pressure, it is easy to blame the visible person. The person has a tone, the person has a facial expression, the person speaks the words, the person is standing there when the customer gets upset. That makes the person easy to coach. But sometimes the associate is not the root of the conflict. Sometimes they are the final visible point of several unclear details stacked together. If you coach the person and leave the process detail broken, you do not fix the issue. You just send the associate back to the same counter with better wording and the same weak system behind them. That is not leadership. That is blame from a distance. Now, this same pattern shows up outside retail too. In a restaurant, it may be the host stand. The guest says the online reservation time looked available. The host sees a different floor reality. A patio section is closed because staffing is thin. A server is triple sat. A table is not reset. The quote time changes. The guest pushes back. The host gets defensive. A manager comp happens later, and leadership calls it a hospitality issue. Maybe the host needs coaching, but maybe the host stand is absorbing unclear reservation rules, weak table status, poor server rotation, bad quote time language, and no manager support during the rush. In a hotel, it may be the front desk. The guest arrives early. The app said mobile check-in was available. The room is not ready. Housekeeping room status is updating slowly. A loyalty upgrade is not showing correctly. The folio has a billing issue. The line starts forming behind the guest. The front desk agent repeats policy, the guest hears rejection, and the manager gets called. Later, the complaint says the agent was rude. Maybe the agent needs coaching. But maybe the real failure is in room status, upgrade communication, mobile check-in language, pre-arrival expectation, or the handoff between housekeeping and front desk. In quick service, it may be the drive-through window. The order was entered wrong, the headset was unclear, the modifier was missed, the guest sees the wrong price, the kitchen is behind, the window timer is running, and the employee is now the face of every upstream miss. In hospitality, these failure points get personal fast because the guest does not experience the process map. They experience the person in front of them. That is why leaders have to get close enough to see what the person is actually carrying. Back at Maya's store, the details start to matter. The return policy sign at the counter is brief, but the online policy has exceptions. Associates know the general return rule, but not the specific language for online exclusive items. The POS prompts are clear to experienced associates, but confusing to newer ones. Manager approval is required for high-dollar returns, but associates do not know what information to gather before calling. Some associates use firm language. Some apologize repeatedly. Some imply the manager can make the exception. Some say the system will not allow it. Some call the manager too early. Some wait too long. That is how inconsistency forms. Not from one dramatic failure, from small details that are not aligned. And inconsistency is expensive. It creates customer distrust. It teaches customers to push harder. It puts associates in a weak authority position. It makes managers the real policy. It increases the chance of overrides. It slows the line. It damages surveys. It creates shrink and margin pressure. It turns the return counter into a service recovery event instead of a transaction. Once that happens, every return has the potential to become a conflict, not because the team is bad, but because the process is not controlled. That is where close-up analysis changes the conversation. Maya stops asking, "Why are associates struggling with returns?" She starts asking, "Where exactly is the return counter process creating friction?" That question has teeth. It forces the leader to look at the moment, not just the complaint. The exact moment might be receipt lookup. It might be online order verification. It might be item condition inspection. It might be refund method. It might be manager approval. It might be the customer having to repeat the story. It might be the line recovery after one complicated return slows everything behind it. Once the exact moment is named, the correction gets stronger. If the friction starts at online order lookup, the store may need a sharper first question and a posted guide showing customers where to find the order number. If the friction starts at item condition, associates need standard language that does not sound accusatory. If the friction starts at manager approval, the team needs a handoff format so the manager arrives with context and does not restart the whole conversation. If the friction starts at policy explanation, the store needs consistent words, not 5 different versions of the same rule. If the friction starts because the POS prompt controls the conversation, associates need to lead the customer while they work the screen, not stare at the register while the customer feels ignored. That is not micromanagement. That is operating discipline. Here's what I would tell a store manager, restaurant manager, hotel front office manager, district leader, service manager, or operations lead. Before you coach the person, name the exact moment where the friction starts. Do not name the whole problem. Returns are bad is not enough. The front desk is rough is not enough. The host stand is struggling is not enough. Name the moment, receipt lookup, policy explanation, item condition check, manager approval, refund method, guest quote time, room status, folio adjustment, comp request, line recovery. Close-up analysis starts with the specific moment, not the broad complaint. Then separate behavior from process. Did the associate use poor tone? Did the guest hear inconsistent language? Did the system create delay? Did the policy exception create confusion? Did manager approval arrive too late? Did the customer-facing information match what the employee had to enforce? Do not protect poor behavior. Do not hide process failure behind behavior. Separate them. If the associate was rude, coach it. If the process is unclear, fix it. If both are true, address both. But do not pretend one explains the other before you inspect the counter. Then check the handoff point. Many service conflicts get worse when help arrives. What information is passed to the manager? Does the customer have to repeat the story? Does the manager know the policy trigger? Does the associate know whether to pause, continue, step aside, or move the customer out of the line? Does the manager reinforce the associate or accidentally undercut them? If the manager overrides without explaining the standard, the associate learns the rule is flexible. The customer learns pressure works. The next return gets harder. Then inspect the customer-facing information. Compare what the customer sees to what the associate must enforce. Does the signage match the online policy? Does the receipt match the current return rule? Are exceptions clear? Can gift returns, online orders, third-party marketplace items, worn products, missing tags, and final sale items be explained without sounding arbitrary? In a restaurant, does the reservation platform match what the host can actually promise? In a hotel, does the app language match the front desk reality? If customer-facing information is weak, the employee inherits the confusion. Then decide what needs correction. The answer may be coaching. It may be policy language. It may be a counter script. It may be manager response timing. It may be a system lookup issue. It may be clearer authority. It may be queue support during peak returns. It may be a better escalation phrase. It may be a cleaner way to inspect merchandise without making the customer feel accused. Close-up analysis does not slow the leader down for no reason. It helps the leader correct the right detail. There are a few warning signs I would watch hard. If the same conflict keeps happening at the same counter, the process deserves inspection, not just the person. If managers keep overriding the same issue, the team may not know whether the policy is real. If customers hear different explanations, trust breaks even when the policy is valid. If associates call for help too early or too late, authority is probably unclear. If the system prompt controls the conversation, the customer feels processed instead of helped. And if the line turns one return into a full-service event, The problem is no longer just one transaction. It is now affecting every customer behind it. The most dangerous warning sign is this: leadership keeps coaching attitude while the same counter keeps producing the same conflict. That is how leaders lose credibility with the team. Associates know when they are being blamed for ambiguity. They know when the policy is unclear. They know when the system path is clumsy. They know when managers override the same rule they were told to enforce. They know when the customer-facing promise does not match the store-level reality. If leadership keeps saying be better while refusing to inspect the point where the friction starts, the team stops trusting the coaching. So I want to say this plainly. This briefing is not telling leaders to excuse poor service. If the associate is rude, coach it. If the front desk agent is dismissive, coach it. If the host is careless, coach it. If the server handles recovery poorly, coach it. Service standards matter, but if the same conflict repeats at the same point in the operation, get closer before you blame. Do not fix from across the room. Do not diagnose from a survey comment alone. Do not turn every repeated customer conflict into a personality issue. Inspect the sequence. The sharper question is this: what exact failure point is making poor handling more likely? If nobody can answer that, the decision is not controlled. If the answer is only, they need to be nicer, the read is too thin. If the return counter has unclear policy language, inconsistent manager overrides, confusing POS prompts, weak handoffs, and customer-facing information that does not match enforcement, the leader needs a better fix than attitude coaching. Hope is not a service strategy. A reminder is not a process correction. A smile does not fix a broken handoff. A controlled decision sounds different. It says, the associate needs firmer language, and the manager handoff needs a standard. It says, we need one explanation for online returns, not 5. It says, the order lookup step is where the line slows, so we are fixing that first. It says, managers will not restart the customer story when they arrive. It says, if we override, we explain whether it is an exception or a new standard. It says, we are protecting service and shrink at the same time. That is retail leadership. That is hospitality leadership. Not soft, not reactive, controlled. So before you blame the associate, inspect the return counter. Ask what you are reacting to because it is visible. Ask where the friction actually starts. Ask whether the customer, associate, system, or manager loses clarity first. Ask whether the same conflict is being produced by policy, technology, handoff, authority, or explanation. Ask what will keep repeating if you only coach the person and never inspect the counter process. Close-up analysis does not block accountability. It protects accountability from being aimed at the wrong target. The associate matters, the customer matters, the policy matters, the business risk matters. But the counter is where all of those pressures collide. Look closer. Inspect the sequence, inspect the handoff, inspect the system prompt, inspect the policy language, inspect the authority gap, then decide what actually needs correction. Do not blame from a distance. Find the failure point. Move with control. Thanks for listening to the briefing.